Shalom. All praises to the Most High. Anoka said, praise be to the earthly mother, the Pachamama, and all of her earthly angels, the Erkadeshoe. Praise be to the Holy Spirit, Akahe, in the name of his only begotten Son, Motsah the Lamb, unification to the nation. So I just got a quick video for you guys today. Something light. I just wanted to just share a little bit of information regarding Europe, the Yoruba tribe, and their connection to Europe. But first, let's go over the blessing that the sons of Joseph received. And this is Genesis 48, verses 17 through 20. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head and unto Manasseh's head. And Joseph said unto his father, Not so, my father, for this is my firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused, and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he shall become great. But truly his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day, saying, And thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. So Ephraim, or Ephraim, how you want to say it, he's going to be a bigger tribe than Manasseh. But Manasseh is the second biggest tribe pretty much. So Ephraim and Manasseh are going to be the two biggest tribes, and they're pretty much going to have a worldwide dominion, pretty much. And from what it's seeming like, the tribe of Ephraim, were the ones who were in Europe before the conquest, and the tribe of Manasseh were the ones that were in North America, Central America, the Caribbean before the conquest. So if you kind of want a catchy title, you can say Ephraim the European, Manasseh the Mayan, kinda. So I want to play this video because there's some serious connections with Europe and Europa, and of course Dr. Tracy McCarthy with another banger. I just want to mention this book is kind of ass when it comes to actual history of the tribe of Ephraim in Britain, because all they're doing, when I was looking into it, I'm just like, bro, all this is a bunch of scriptures taken out of context, and it's annoying as hell to read. So, I apologize if this book is a waste of time. I'm sure there's some stuff in it, but as far as I know, like, I was hoping for much more. It's very underwhelming, because all it is a bunch of white people trying to prove how they are the tribe of Ephraim because of their modern day circumstances, and coupling that with a bunch of hijacked history that has nothing to do with them. It's very pathetic. So let's play this video.
Hi everyone, welcome to History on Trial. This is Dr. Tracy McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator. We are continuing our discussion related to the Yoruba. We are going to be looking at some ancestral dynamics related to the Yoruba, and we're going to do some transliterations. And so you're going to see how the name Yoruba is manifested in a variety of languages. One of the other things that you're going to make note of is the fact that the Yoruba are a very ancient people. And up until this point, they have been living in some degree of obscurity, meaning the identity has been obscured. And so we're going to be looking at some of these transliterations in a very ancient transliteration of this name that is going to then give us a better idea of where the people came from and where this name came from. We're going to start off with a little collage, just as a reminder for people that individuals in antiquity living in specific geopolitical spaces may not look like the people that are occupying those spaces today. And so that's a big part of what creates confusion in history. It has been these migrations and deportations and removals and conquerings and things of that nature. And so we're just going to give a little reminder about what many of the ancient Europeans looked like prior to today.
And now these would be the Phoenicians, pretty much, which are an amalgamation of a bunch of Shemitic groups, one of them including Israel, and the Canaanites. And then later on, a mixture of the Japhet peoples, some of the peoples of Ham. So they're just a big mix of people. You don't know who is who. Um, but, they're so called melanated people overall. After all that mixing, they're still going to be relatively melanated looking, if you want to use that term. I believe that was an Iberian on the right.
We're going to first look at the Hausa transliteration of Yoruba. And as you can see off to the right hand side, there is a difference in spelling, with the Hausa spelling it Yarbawa. And then we have a Portuguese transliteration where it is spelled and pronounced Iruba. This name, this ethnicity, is apparently known around the world because you have these transliterations in a variety of languages across continents. And so here you see the Irish transliteration, and this is very important because this word and this name is important in the Irish because it constitutes a number of dynamics, and you can see there are sorts of grammar rules associated with this name. And so you have Yoruba as a noun, and then you have Yoruba as an adjective, and the Irish are very specific about this. And this also might suggest that the Yoruba have a particular relationship with the Irish.
Hmm.
We're going to be looking at a very interesting transliteration coming out of the Tamil language. Tamil is a very ancient classical language of India, and it's from the Dravidian language group in terms of that language family. And so we're going to be looking at that. What's really interesting about this is that this is a very ancient language, and they have their own understanding of the name Yoruba, and you're going to see the difference in terms of spelling, and you're going to see the difference in terms of the way Yoruba is pronounced. You're also going to see a dynamic that's related to that betacism dynamic that we talked about, where letters are interchangeable, like the B and the V and the B and the P, and that is a dynamic that goes on with the Tamil language with respect to the Yoruba.
And the people of Tamil, I believe that, you know, I don't know how many or the percentage or whatever, but there's definitely a connection with whatever kingdom that Solomon set up in Kumari Kingdom, which is the sunken land that is right beneath India and connected to Ethiopia as well as Australia. Probably, I think the lands were just closer. So I think maybe Australia was still connected to Egypt. I don't know when that broke off. When I mean Egypt, I mean Antarctica. Um, so just keep that in mind that we were the ones who sort of spread language. A lot of these people did not have languages before. I'm mainly talking about the people like the Indo-European uh, peoples or the Japhet or Hamitic peoples. I don't think that they had a language, but that's I don't know if that's necessarily true. Just an educated opinion.
And here you can see just how ancient Tamil is. It goes way back into the BC period. And here we have this interesting transliteration coming out of the Tamil. And with the Tamil way of pronouncing Yoruba, you have Yoruba.
Yoruba.
This is interesting for the obvious reason. Yoruba or Europa is the name that serves as the foundation of the continent known as Europe.
Europe.
And here you have some other transliterations, and you can see in the Pashto that there's also that Yoroi sound when transliterating Yoruba. Now let's check out some of these Yoruba origins. As you can see, Europe comes from the Latin Europa, and there is a claim that there is an uncertain origin. However, you can see down below that this name is tied to none other than a Phoenician princess in Greek mythology. And you can also see an indication of a possible Semitic origin, and we're going to look at that a little bit more. You can also see where there is a part of the transliteration related to Phoenician and indicating hence west.
Now, it says that the people or the Phoenicians came from the east. But if we are at the center of the world, right, then east would be over here because they are at the west. Do you understand? Think about it. And if we are across the Pacifics, where's east? So we are in the east. This is the east because this is the center. This is pretty much all directions. The far east, the far west, it's all here. Because if we're in the center, then you're always going to end up back here.
Not only is Yoruba associated with Europa, you also have Yoruba being associated with the name of two Israelite kings, and you have Jeroboam or Jeroboam. And you can see with the Jeroboam, when you see the Y in place of the J, you can more readily see the Yoruba. And this name comes again from a Semitic origin.
Look at what this means. The people increase. Jeroboam was an Ephraimite king. Let's go to Genesis 49. Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by the well, whose branches run over the wall. Right? The people increase. What was Joseph, or particularly Ephraim, what was he blessed with? He has the greatest gift of repopulation, things of that sort, right? They're the tribe that gets down. The bunny rabbits.
Means the people increase. And according to a number of narratives, there is an association between Jeroboam and Europa also. And so all of these names are intertwined, sort of meeting together, ending up with this name Europe. And here you can see additional transliteration information and forms of that name. And again, the name is rooted in this idea of people will contend. You can look down at the bottom and you can see Yoruba or Yoruba inside of these forms and transliterations. And part of the difficulty with understanding the origins of Yoruba, those roots, the difficulty comes from often attributing some of these names and these cultural dynamics and these ancestral lines to Canaanite heritage. And again, this may be related to attributions related to the mother in place of the father. And so there may be a matrilineal focus when discussing these things.
So, the Canaanites, they're claiming people based on their matrilineal lineage when the woman does not have a seed line. So I don't know how they're doing that. But the spirit that is going to be in a child has to do with whatever their forefathers were. So even if Israelites are marrying Canaanites, they're going to produce Israelites. They might produce wicked Israelites, but they're still Israelites. And she just said that these people are attributed to Canaanites because of some sort of matrilineal relation. Right? May I continue?
However, when you look at this name, this is definitely not a quote-unquote Canaanite name, and this is definitely a Semitic name, and not only a Semitic name, but we could call it a Jacobite name, or we could call it an Israelite name. And here you see additional components of that name, also meaning to strive or to contend, related to quarreling. And here are some additional transliterations, and you can see down below with the Mongolian, you see the E inserted there, and you also see that P in place of the B. Now these are some interesting draft registration cards, and you can see here the name Europa being carried by a number of people. What's interesting about this is that the individuals tend to come from the Philippines. And here you see another individual with the name Europa, again from the Philippines. And here you see an additional Europa, again coming from the Philippine Islands. These are very old records, so this is from 1906. And another record, this one's coming from 1910, and this is again another Europa, and again from the Philippines.
Very interesting that the people of the Philippines connect with Joseph. I find that very interesting. But yes, there are many, many Israelites all over the Pacific Islands. But this is kind of what this prophecy meant. Joseph, the seed line of Joseph is everywhere. More so Ephraim than Manasseh.
As we wrap this up, we have looked at a number of transliterations related to the Yoruba name, the Yoruba people. And these transliterations have been important because many of them are ancient. And you can see from these ancient transliterations that Yoruba is tied to a little bit more than has been previously understood. And so the understanding is that Yoruba, the Yoruba people, have roots that are in Europe, and also these Semitic roots that have been largely ignored. This also sheds some light on the relationship between the Yoruba, Nigeria, West Africa, and many European countries, and sort of that migration back and forth that tends to go on. It also
Didn't they say that the Moors came from Mauritania? So, who were the Moors? The Moors were a mixed people because the Phoenicians were a mixed people, and these people relate to the Phoenicians. So I'm not saying that they're all one thing, because you have a bunch of Moabite Moors who are saying that there's no such thing as Israelites and they're all Moabites, and those people drive me insane. Like, I was trying to do some little bit deeper research. They were just confusing the hell out of me. Just confusing me. So I had to really dumb down the video because it just made my brain hurt. So I'm just going to say that there are a bunch of different Moorish people who were in the Iberian Peninsula in West Africa, and they were ruled by the Israelites until they took them down. Hence why the whole continent is called Europe. And it's only that western part that's called Europe, really. And then the other, Eastern Europe, no one really thinks of that as, like, where the Moors went, right? That's more of a mixture of Japhet and, the Caucasus peoples, the Canaanites, the Canaanites. I don't know who else, but let's see what else she has to say.
Sheds a little bit of light, a little bit more light, on what took place related to the transatlantic slave trade. and also with respect to what happened to that kingdom of Judah that was situated right there on that coast. And so this is one of those truth commission dynamics, something that needs to be explored a little bit more, because you have a genocide, a removal, an ethnic cleansing that at this point starts to look very, very personal and like a long held grudge down through centuries. And
She's spot on. She definitely is spot on. Uh, because they're definitely jealous. That's really what it comes down to. They were jealous, and they made a covenant. They made a pact with each other to keep us away from our power. That's why they try to obscure everything, and they try to give everything a white face because they're trying to hide who the full enemy is. I'm not going to say the true enemy because people think, oh, like, the white man is innocent. It's all black people who are there. Like, no, bro, stop it. Stop. We have light skinned enemies, we have dark skinned enemies. We have light skinned allies, we have dark skinned allies. That's just how it is. And how they're trying to obscure the truth, it lets me know who these people are. Because they can't even get their story correct. They can't even get their story straight. And I'm referring to the Moors or the Moabites. I'm referring to them as the Moors because they take on that moniker.
and this seems to trace back to relationships, father-son relationships, going back even to Abraham.
See that? This is a uh, paternal war because people really, honestly, they know what the real is. They understand what's what. They understand that it's all about the seed lines, and they're at war with a seed line, our seed line. They're at war with us.
And unfortunately, many historical narratives have been rooted in dynamics related to phenotype. And so it has created a process wherein individuals have made connections, or they think they see and have connections with individuals based upon skin color. And those connections may not be in actuality what many people think they are. And
Boom. Yeah, but the Moors, we was ruling Europe. No, nigga. What do you mean? There are different sorts of Moors, different sorts of melanated peoples. You have people who are in Spain and Portugal who, look so called Spanish or sort of mixed or sort of like, brownish, like a tanned white person who are our people. And you have these Negroes who are literally the people who sold my brothers into slavery. You have to really think outside the box when it comes to this stuff because this stuff is very deep. We were sent off as slaves to the Americas, to Africa, to Europe, from Europe to Africa, from Africa to Europe, from Europe to North America, from Africa to South America, and vice versa.
what you see here is a dynamic wherein you have individuals with one phenotype perhaps being more closely aligned and connected in terms of ancestry with individuals who may have another phenotype. So we're talking about the Yoruba in Africa and many of the people who are in Europe today. This information is also very pertinent to those who might be descended from those individuals from that kingdom of Judah on the west coast of Africa who were deported into the Americas. And so this is definitely something to look into a little bit more. And also for those individuals who were deported out of Europe into the Americas based upon the Jacobite fights. Remember, knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. I know you have said, we are the house of Israel. I know you have said, we are the seed of Joseph. I know you have said, Manasseh I led over, but Ephraim I brought in chains. From where? From Yoruba? Ephraim? Chains? Brought over from where? If they're talking about North America, they're not talking about Africa. They're talking about Europe. So there you go. Let me read this part. Well, let me actually read Hosea 7. Because now this makes a little bit more sense. Because when we're so-called mixing with these other nations, and it's calling us a cake not turned, we've been mixing before Ephraim was mixing. So, no, that's not why Puerto Ricans look light-skinned. They've been looking light-skinned because we've been mixing in with the Phoenicians and the Canaanites and other, other peoples, and that doesn't even account for the people of Japhet who are here. So we've been mixing up with these other peoples for a long time. But what does that matter? It only starts to get, it's only, one, the Most High only said don't mix with Canaan, and of course that's what we did. I showed you that in the last video, that the Incans carted off away the Jebusite women to be their wives. Right? So that certainly occurred. And it occurred, I don't know how much it occurred, but it occurred. When it says Ephraim also is like a silly dove without heart, they call to Egypt, they go to Assyria. Right? That's what they were doing on that side of the world. But they became a mighty nation. Now this is interesting, this coat of arms right here, because this shows that there was some sort of a rulership between Ephraim, the unicorn, and Judah, the lion. Right? And I wanted to read this. In Numbers chapter 2, verse 2 through 34, God commanded the tribes of ancient Israel on their way to the promised land to divide into 4 brigades of 3 tribes each when they set up camp, with each brigade arranged on one side of the square camp. Each brigade would assemble behind the standard of the leading tribe on its side. 4 leading tribes were Judah, Reuben, Ephraim, and Dan. The Jewish Encyclopedia, Flag, and many other sources attest that the ancient heraldic symbol on the standard of Ephraim was a bull or ox. Dan's, as we saw in chapter 2, was an eagle. Reuben's was a man, and the symbol of Judah was a lion. The origin of these symbols can be traced to the prophecies God gave regarding particular tribes. Remember that God had said of Ephraim and Manasseh, his glory is like a firstborn bull, and his horns or weapons are like the horns of a wild ox or unicorns. Notice that the New King James Version replaced the King James word unicorns with a wild ox. This is certainly correct, since the medieval unicorn idea is thought to have originated from the bovine or I don't know what that is, of the Sinai Peninsula, and not from any horse-related animals. Moving down, recall that in later years, Jeroboam, the first king of northern Israel, would erect 2 golden bulls, one in the cities of Dan and Bethel, for the Israelites to worship. As Jeroboam was an Ephraimite, the house of Joseph, he may have used the fact that the bull was his own tribal symbol to introduce it into Israel's new pagan worship. Centuries before Christ, the ancient Britons worshipped a bull or heifer. It is any wonder that a well-known nickname for the British is John Bull. So there's a lot of interesting connections when it comes to Ephraim and Europe, or the United Kingdom. I guess the Celts, the Irish, the Scottish, the British. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to read. Let's read this. When all the tribes came to David to anoint him king of Israel, surely Ephraim, being the leader tribe among them, showed loyalty to the king. Then Solomon's lack of wisdom and the crash folly of Rehoboam in the management of the northern tribes fanned the smoldering discontent into a fierce flame. This made easy the work of the rebel Jeroboam, and from the day of the disruption till the fall of the northern kingdom, there was none to dispute the supremacy of Ephraim, the names Ephraim and Israel being synonymous. The most distinguished of Ephraim's sons were Joshua, Samuel, and Jeroboam the first. So that's pretty much that's all I wanted to mention. I just want to push the concept that Ephraim was the majority of the Israelites that it seems were in Europe. And I think as Big Judah went over, I think in that last video, or I can't remember what video it was, but they were saying how the Britons didn't come from Europe. The Europeans came from Britain. And they're saying, well, how is that possible? Where the hell did they come from? Where did they come from? Something Big Judah would say, lesson, this even today. Alright, I think that's about it. So, what did we learn? The people of Europe, even today, some of them could be from the tribe of Ephraim. I wouldn't know. That's why it's up to everyone to pray and fast and ask the Most High who you are, because believe it or not, I actually asked the Most High because I was very interested in what my tribe is. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I think I know, because I prayed and I asked, and I believe He showed me. So I believe you guys should do the same if you're interested in knowing. So Ephraim can look like anyone at this point. He is mixed with every single nation on the earth, and this is why I judge the spirit of people. I'm not going to tell anyone that they're Israel, but I'm going to show you history and show you, who people are and where they were. But I'm not going to tell you who people are today. I don't know. We're too mixed up for me to know that. So that's all. Peace be with you. Selah Kala.